can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like the founders you've heard of, some you've never heard of. Johnathan, I like hearing about some of the low point, challenging stories. So I had, P90X founder Tony Horton talked to, he's obviously made hundreds of millions of dollars, sold hundreds of millions of dollars with P90X, but he talks about he was a street mime. He made money for his food and rent money by putting his hat on the street and doing street mime, street performing, actually. Baby Einstein founder Julie Clark, she grew her company $20 million with 5 employees, ended up selling to Disney, but she beat cancer twice in some of the crazy kind of low points and challenges she had. Atari founder Nolan Bushnell, he was Steve Jobs' mentor, and Steve offered Nolan 33% of Apple for $50,000, and why he said no. And there's many more amazing stories on InspiredInsider.com, so check them out. This episode is brought to you by Rise25, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. And at Rise25, I was telling Johnathan about this. He's like, what do you actually do? Well, we help B2B businesses connect to their Dream 100 clients and referral partners and help you run your podcast so it generates ROI. It's been the best thing I've done for my business and my life. I've gone to people's weddings. I've gone on family vacations. When Johnathan comes to Chicago, I'm sure we'll go to dinner, hopefully. But it's a lot more personal for me. It's not just about business. It's about, I consider it helping my guests and me leave a legacy. And I was inspired to start by my grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor. And him and his brother were in concentration camps in Nazi Germany, and they were the only members of their family to survive. And his words and legacy live on. He's not alive anymore. But if you go to my About page on Inspired Insider, you could see a full video of when the Holocaust Foundation interviewed him. And his legacy lives on because of that interview. And so it really inspires me. Obviously, I think every business should have a podcast, period. But it also will help you leave a legacy. And so if you have questions, you can go to rise25.com or support@rise25media.com. So I want to introduce today's guest. Before I do, I want to give a big thank you to Chris Dreyer. He's founder of rankings.io. He helps elite personal injury law firms dominate first page rankings. He was like, you need to have Johnathan on. You need to have KlientBoost on. They're an amazing company. So thank you, Chris, for that. And he's exactly right after doing a lot of research. And also 2 people I respect in the agency world, Ian Garlick, who runs Story Cruise, and Jason Swank, who, helps top agencies grow. So we have Johnathan Dane. He's a founder of KlientBoost. And so you can look up online. It's KLIENT Boost. And they're a hybrid PPC CRO agency that's grown from 0 to 8 figures in just the past few years. And what they do is they are creative pay-per-click and paid social and landing page conversion rate optimization agency. Basically, they help you make money. They're focused on profit. So they have over 200 active clients. So if you're a SaaS company, eCommerce company, a lead generation company, and you want more clients, call them. Now, the funny thing is, some people don't know this, some people do, but they actually do content marketing, technical SEO, and conversational marketing, meaning probably everything it takes to set up chatbots and actually lead people into that sale. Because probably their clients are like, hey, you're driving a lot of clients, we need more conversion. What are the other steps of conversion? I imagine, Johnathan, you correct me if I'm wrong. And then they started doing that for people too, because that helps complete the sale. And they basically focus on beautiful, high converting user experiences. Fun fact is he grew up in Denmark and played professional basketball. So Johnathan, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, man. That intro, I feel such like a little tiny peanut compared to the names that you have had on the show. I'm grateful. Thank you.
You're amazing. You're amazing. And we are just talking before we hit record that you were very close to getting acquired.
Yes.
Before the pandemic coronavirus hit.
Correct. We were about 3 weeks away.
Yeah. Talk to me about maybe some of the conversations leading up, anything you can share. And
Sure.
then now.
Yeah, I think from a founder perspective, if you have the chance to be acquired and you have the chance to get a nice payday, it's one of the, feathers in the cap, entrepreneurial kind of like milestones that I think anybody would lie to you if they said they weren't interested in that. And so we were having a good amount of conversation. Like our EBITDA and our profit was growing, along with our revenue. And
did you actively seek that out more, or they came to you? Or
there were 3 parties at the end of 2019 that were interested in us, and they came knocking on our door. And so when I was having conversations with other people that I would call mentors or just people I trust, they're like, "Are you sure you don't want to hire somebody to run shop for you and see what else is out there, given the fact that 3 different companies are knocking on your door?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's a good point." And so I started doing my own little knocking on doors outside, and didn't obviously have any success with it. So I just kept the conversations going with the 3 parties that were knocking on our door. So yeah.
So what happened leading up? So they're knocking on your door. What happened?
So there's a lot of due diligence. There's a lot of seeing in the world of agencies, there's 2 different options you have. You have the chance to be a platform where you continue to be the brand, and you have the chance to be a bolt-on where you're part of a bigger brand. And so the conversation that we were having was being more of a bolt-on. And
was that your preference?
No, definitely not. I mean, if I could still keep the brand going of what we've been able to create as far as a snowball already, I think that would be in the best interest if there was no emotions involved. Same with the people acquiring us. We just have a higher domain authority. We're more well known. And so it would have been best for them to take our brand. But, for me, I was like, what's more important for me? At the end of the day, I care about the money. That's why I started the business. I'm not going to lie. And so I needed that to make sense first. And then whatever they want to sell for scraps or parts later, I'll be honest, I didn't care for.
Is there a concern with due diligence of they know our processes or internal things or clients or anything like that?
So it's interesting you ask. So we have a value set principle that basically is an acronym that spells PARTY. It stands for pushing ourselves, accountability, resilience, transparency, and a focus on you, which is like the client, right? Like you give us the feedback, you help dictate what we do in the future, how we make things better and all that kind of stuff. Once we get all that stuff done, we can celebrate, and we do celebrate. So talking about the transparency, I have been tempted, I've thought about it, but it's really doesn't do much of a favor to literally disclose our entire client list and see if any agencies out there can try to poach them. Because if they can, it's the same as if somebody's poaching your employee on LinkedIn. If they're able to do that, you shouldn't be upset. You should be more so look at yourself and say, why am I not doing a better job having a relationship with this client or this employee?
Yeah.
So the answer is no, I'm not concerned. There's a lot of things that people need to copy and compel: the brand, the tone, the personality of who we are, all that kind of stuff. The things that I think of as far as next steps of our own marketing, if they knew everything, which they do, it's necessary to make the acquisition happen. So there's no way around that. And, knowing my thoughts on it before, I'm not concerned about it.
Yeah. It's interesting about that. First of all, I think that's the name of your book, after you sell or before you sell, PARTY, and then some cool tagline there. But
actually, the name, I thought about it. The name of my book is going to be called The Art of Eating Shit. And it sounds horrible, but it's literally
it does sound horrible.
It's all about adversity. Yeah. And I wanted to look at other founders and things like that have gone through things where no, this was shit when it happened, but now I'm loving it because it gives me these skills or this focus or this mindset and things like that too. Yeah. So anyways, but I could write another book called PARTY. That's fine.
No, it's maybe more PC. But I ran Fishkin on with his book. I don't know if you read his book, but I think he would, yeah, exactly. I think he would agree with that title anyways, with his book, you know what I mean? If anyone listens to that book, it's a Lost and Founder, great book. And, that definitely, your title definitely encapsulates some of the stories in there. So the sale or potential sale made you realize a few things.
It did. And so what we found out was prior to the acquisition being underway, which starts with like a letter of intent, phase, which is an exclusivity that usually lasts between 60 to 90 days. What we had already thought of was, we have a pretty agnostic sounding name at like KlientBoost. Like, what does that matter? Or what does that mean? And you can argue that like, hey, we help our clients boost, or we get you more clients, which is fine. But the way we go about it doesn't matter. And so we were thinking to ourselves, hey, we built our own brand on content marketing. A lot of our clients are asking us about that. A lot of our clients are asking about email marketing or chatbot marketing. Why are we holding one hand behind our backs when it comes to this? And now with the pandemic underway, one of the fastest things we've realized is that advertising agencies are really in for a world of hurt, because you have the advertising spend that a client can lower or just pause. And then you also have the agency fee of what we charge. So if you're a content marketing agency, you just have the cost of the content. You don't have an ad spend portion. Same thing with email. So we were at this like risky, in this risky spot where like we just weren't really prepared to like take hits or be part of a storm or anything like that either. And so learning through the acquisition, what this bigger agency is doing and how they're doing it and all the data that they had to support it, I was like, okay, now we definitely have to go this route, because it's like the future. Like we should. It's a way to protect ourselves. It's a way to make more money from less clients, things like that, have longer contracts, like all the things that actually make you a stronger company. It was going that way. And the only thing that had me second guess or be not sure about that was we built our brand and our thought leadership in the world that we live in, which is, paid ads and conversion optimization. If we start saying that we do radio advertising and billboard, like all these other things, then it could dilute. And that's what I was afraid of. But now I'm like, I've seen it work. I don't care anymore. Like it is going to work. So that's what we're going for.
You've seen it work because you saw that through that other company through the due diligence process?
Correct.
It's a legitimate point, right? A lot of people say, listen, focus,
Right.
Focus and double down on what you're good at. So it's a balance. So how do you decide going forward? Now you have other things that people can utilize. How do you decide certain things you probably decided not to do, and certain things? So talk about the things you're going forward going to do, and maybe some of the things you decided we're not going to do that.
Yeah. A real specific example is like we could have offered social media management, which is like the organic way of posting on social media, but the attribution of that and proving that it makes money is a little tougher unless you're actually already a well-known brand. And if you are, you're probably not going to give the keys to the kingdom to us, right? Like you're going to keep doing what you're doing. So that was an aspect of like,
that was on the table, but like it got on the chopping block.
It got chopped because it's not easy to prove ROI from it. And so all the things that I do and want to do for myself and even for our clients is I'll prioritize only the things that I know can have an effect and an impact in that way that we can prove. And so that's
100%.
That's one reason why. The other reason why is just like, I've had so many talks with other agency owners. I run a community called GrowthComet with a buddy named Ross Hudgens out of Siege Media. And we also have insight into like agencies from around, there's over like 100 agencies part of that community, like what they do, what works, what doesn't. And they're obviously there to like learn from us.
Cool.
There's a lot of,
what's the site? People go check it out.
It's growthcomet.com.
COMET.com.
Yep. If it looks like you are seeing a flaming meatball, you're in the right spot.
That's the cover art for your book also.
That's the third book.
So yeah, you were saying GrowthComet. So you have insights into that.
So through the due diligence process was like the most clear insight, like, okay, this bigger agency has bigger retainers than us, but not necessarily bigger client, like the size of the company as a client itself is not necessarily bigger. And then, it was very logical then to have the conversation, understanding that like, hey, the more hooks you have in a client, the more services you have in a client, the harder it is for that client to just say, hey, we're letting you guys all go and you're going to try to replace us by hiring us in-house. Like good luck. Like that's not going to be easy. Plus we'll have them, those different marketing services communicate with each other. Like there's going to be, I hate using the word synergies, but there literally is because of the recipes that we have. And like usually a lot of companies will have them operate in silos. They won't understand the conversion intent of different traffic sources and what that means from a CTA. And, I can get really technical about that.
There's a
So
pain of breakage, like if you break one of these pieces, the rest kind of breaks also. There's a pain of disconnect there if they
are
stop.
you talking about like when you get the breads at the restaurant or?
Yeah, exactly.
So we had the I would say qualitative feedback from GrowthComet and understanding and seeing that, and also just knowing other marketing agencies that do have a holistic focus, or sorry, a single focus where we're trying to be more holistic, and it just gives us so much more freedom and wiggle room, and actually allows us to just get results faster for the client. We can, like, it's that analogy of like the rising tide is lifting all the boats. And so we're doing it for ourselves. We can do it for other clients. And it's so far, with a few clients that we had that we're testing this with, it's working really, really well.
Yeah, I could see, because like one of our principles also at Rise 25 is like we have an ROI filter. So, if it's not going to produce ROI, so that seemed to be kind of one of the things you looked at when you're like, here's the services we could do, but these are the ones you can directly track to ROI, and the other ones, we don't want to do that. They may get ROI, it may not, it may be better for branding, but you're not branding, you're like a direct response.
Yeah, at least we won't prioritize them. So we might do them in the future, but not now, before the other ones.
Yeah. And it was interesting. So thank you for that conversation around focus, because I know I always struggle with that whole conversation in my head, and not other people do. The other piece, and we'll get to the contrarian thing. So I like about you is you go contrarian on certain things, but you mentioned Ross and Siege Media, and you had a really interesting conversation with Ross that I was watching. And what was cool is interesting that, you help your clients, SaaS, lead gen, e-com, get clients through paid media. What was interesting is how you got a lot of your clients.
Right. Yeah.
So talk about that.
So we invest, and I have a heavy focus on brand and content marketing. So all of our clients and all of our growth to hit our recent milestone, which was the 10 million annual recurring revenue, has come through our content, our thought leadership. And like, it's such a no-brainer if you can have the long-term patience, but still being able to execute and see that every blog post or every piece of content you come out with is literally just planting a seed for it to be harvested later. That's literally what it is. Or not literally, that's stupid to say because it's not an actual crop, but you get what I mean. So that's the funny thing that we've done where, early days of KlientBoost, I looked at the landscape. I looked at what I thought was, this is really much like the uniformity across all agencies. They all look very identical. They all look alike. How can we differentiate, which is a big focus that I still think of, that I'm very excited about, our rebrand and our refresh and our redesign that we're coming out with. But it all started with, that lemonade stand principle that I shared in that interview, where the internet is like a street, and on that street are all the different agencies that somebody can think of. And if there's not a way for you to like continually give value or scratch backs or give high fives to your content or whatever you're doing, then you're going to look identical to everything else on that street. It's just how people are going to perceive you. So the things that I mentioned in the video is, how do you focus on making your lemonade stand the best looking lemonade stand out there? You have your social proof, you have other people talking about you, which in the digital world can be reviews, testimonials, video case studies, things like that. And then you also have the ability to make sure that your uniform is the best looking. You have organic lemons. You have the best ice cubes, not the cube ones, but like the crunchy little nugget ones, right? You have the best looking glasses. Like you just have that customer experience focus. And then to actually take that and put it into action, a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people think it's cool and they agree with it, but they can't continuously execute on it. And they're not willing to audit themselves to make sure they keep doing that. So to your original question, like, the content was a pillar to building a brand. And that is one of the hardest things to do in a very, very saturated market, because if you think about it, we are marketers marketing against other marketers to attract marketers to be our clients. I don't know of another harder thing. It's like, if we're going to make this work and not fall in the trap of like only asking for referrals or only tapping our network for the next client, then like, how do we make sure that we are very successful? And it was starting with content.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned on that talk and in general, which I thought was interesting, is one of the other reasons why is when you are advertising or you're in other places, it's a comparison engine. So they're looking at you side by side with your competitor.
And
like
Google,
if you have
Google it is.
Yeah, Google. I mean, even Facebook, you can see comparisons out there. And so the content, you're kind of standalone. Like, this is us. This is what we serve. This is, the value we deliver. And so you're kind of a standalone. It's kind of like what I picture when I get, if you ever get those Google AdWords mailers, like if you notice, they're sending direct mail to get customers, even though they own Google AdWords, right?
Well, it's a point. What I love about that point is that once you have a channel of acquisition that works for you, keep improving it, but now go on to the next one. And so Google is obviously has a lot of money. They can do a lot of things and experiment with it. I'm sure it works for them, but yeah. 100%.
They own it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about so, when I looked you up, Johnathan, I told you I did a lot of research. I found so many articles and blogs, and which is great and terrible for my research, because now I'm like, I got to look at all these. But, I think you're on like HubSpot, and you have like a profile there, and you got articles there and everywhere. What's been a big, you remember early on, that started the flywheel?
The accelerant, or like the enzyme that was the catalyst to our growth, was a contrarian, again, like going against the grain, opposite approach article that I wrote for Unbounce, which is a landing page software. And I basically wrote an article that said, and it wasn't even my idea with the headline. And if they didn't use this headline, I don't know if we would have been where we're at today. I don't know if I'd be talking to you, honestly. They wrote the headline that says, "You're doing AdWords wrong," which is the old name for Google Ads. Here's how to do it right. And I just started getting flooded with comments. There was at some point, and I haven't checked it recently, but it was up to a point of like 400 comments in a blog post. And I'm like, I've never seen that anywhere else. And people were like, "Hey, how do we do this? Like, how do we run this execution within our Google Ads account?" And so a lot of it, I think I personally inflated the numbers of comments because of my replies, but I don't remember.
That's the way you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, but that was back in like 2014. So I was a co-founder of another agency, and then did my own thing and moved back to Southern California to start KlientBoost. That was it. And I think a lot, and actually Rand Fishkin, who again, Lawson founder, author, now founder of SparkToro, talks about contrarian marketing, like how valuable it is as long as you can back it up. Because after I came out with that article, it became very normal. And we saw a lot of accounts that had the structure that we recommended, which is a single keyword ad group structure, but our execution was specific. And again, people are trying to like knock it down to be contrarian against that, but it's only going to work if they actually have, an execution or stats or data to support it, because if not, it's just your opinion. And so it looks foolish. So we had the data, we had the facts, and we had the contrarian opinion, and that like took off.
So what other opinions, or maybe expand on that you have that are contrarian, whether it's in running an agency or marketing?
I think that differentiation by itself is very contrarian, obviously. But I think what people struggle with is how do you look at that black and white? How do you make it objective? So an example that I can give you is agencies, most marketing agencies suck at marketing themselves. They just do. The ones that do really well are the ones who invest in illustrations, like custom stuff, right? The ones that take professional photos and not just like, hey, give me your iPhone, I'm going to take it. Like they're acting like every detail matters. Like literally, if you ask my entire team to send you an email, there is a space between our little banner that we have in the email and the dashed line beneath it. And if I see that there's an extra space, I like flip out in a nice way. Like I'm not a dick. Like I don't like to think that.
I don't see you flipping out in a mean way. But yeah.
I tell our brand designer that I'm like, hey, we need to fix this now. Like every single thing matters. So that's one piece. The other piece is like, let's look at it through the lens of content marketing. Differentiation there is any focused keyword that you're trying to get your blog post to rank for. if you are seeing that your competitors have a listicle, which is basically a list of an article, right? That's what's called a listicle. And the points that they have is more or higher than what you're posting, don't even publish. Like, you're not going to get anything, like, as far as, like, again, just looking at it from a lemonade stand principle, people are going to judge you. They're going to pick an article. And if your competitors has 21 ways to perform better with podcast marketing, you're going to publish one with 7, get the F out of here. Like, why would you? That doesn't make any sense. Like, don't even do that. So things like that. Also, first party data. Like, the day that you can actually come out with first party data is the day that your brand starts taking off from a marketing perspective, because you are the source of truth. You are the citation. Nobody can go beyond you. Like, you have to be cited. You have to be linked to. So those are just a few things that, like, are really important.
So let's talk about that for a second. Talking about being the source, right? You have a lot of, if someone goes on KlientBoost's website, I was on it yesterday and today, you have a whole page of case studies. Okay. Right. And it lists a bunch of SaaS. I mean, you could even click via category, SaaS, lead gen, e-com. If someone's looking to do an actual case study page on their website, I suggest you look at KlientBoost.com case study, because it puts people to shame. It puts us to shame. Like, we need to step up our game when it comes to this thing.
Well, what's crazy is that the page that you see is actually an unbounce page. It's not part of our actual website. It's a test. And I sent you a Google Drive folder. I don't know if you can share it with the listeners. But our actual amount of case studies are like over 120. And like the ones on the website, I think is like 20. So we have way more, but thank you.
Yeah. It looks, the way it's structured is really good. And I say it because you're like, ShipStation, Ad Espresso, Autopilot. I know you have companies that you work with, Bloomberg, Stanford University. But I wanted to talk about one of them, like, as a use case, because it'd be valuable for people to hear. And I know a lot of people, there's a lot of people I know in SaaS and e-commerce, but e-commerce specifically. And on the kind of contrarian topic of case studies, maybe one of the e-commerce case studies that's maybe took some contrarian thinking.
Sure, for sure. The one that I'll highlight in this case is the one called Latote. And I don't know if it's on our website, but I'll share it with you.
263% increase in conversion rate.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that could help everybody listening too is that when we think of how we execute anything marketing related, I think of it in the terms of recipes. Like, how simple can I make this so that everybody can bake the same cake and have the same outcome? And that goes across, like, our own marketing when we are doing ads or content or podcasts or whatever, our salespeople when they're talking about it, and then our fulfillment or operations when they're doing the actual work for the client. If I can't make it a recipe, I really don't care about it. Like, I don't try to make it like that interesting, or I just, don't do it. So Latote specifically, what was really, really interesting about them is that this was early days of KlientBoost. We were just hired on to just do the Google Ads side and the landing page side. The paid social they had pretty much nailed down, and they weren't looking for help with that. They just wanted to scale the Google side. So what we did was we exhausted the impression share of all search traffic. And in search, there's basically 4 buckets of conversion intent that you can be pretty sure of. There's your brand, which is, great. The more you have of that, great ROI, great return on ad spend. Then you have competitor traffic. Then you have generic traffic. And then you have informational traffic. Informational can be symptom related, or like what, where, how, things like that. And they all convert at different rates. And also, if you can get it to convert and you are a lead gen or you are a SaaS company, and I'm not talking e-commerce, because e-commerce, the sale happens on the site, right? It's very black and white. You can get that ROAS and see the full picture very quickly. Lead gen and SaaS, there's usually an offline component.
Yeah. And there may be a demo. There may be like a couple of conversations. Yeah.
So a lot of people, when they do tracking to revenue, they do it at the campaign level. What they don't do, which they should do, is they have enough volume, is that they do down to the keyword level. But even better than that, your search term level. And I don't want to get too technical, so you tell me where I should go.
Go ahead.
So basically, in Google Ads world, the search term.
This is the section. If you are e-commerce, or you actually doing this stuff, you should listen. If not,
this is just on the search side. We're not even talking shopping yet. So also, recently, years ago, Google came out with making shopping ads and listings free as a retaliation against Amazon. just to get more advertisers on Google Shopping, which is pretty rad. So what was I talking about? I forgot.
You were saying the search level, keyword level.
So search term is what people actually type in, and the keyword is what you actually bid on. In 99% of the time, your keywords and your search terms have a pretty wide discrepancy. So it's not enough to just bucket your campaigns in those 4 buckets of intent that I already mentioned. It's also really important that you keep mining your search terms, not just for negative keywords, but making sure that they actually correlate to the correct keyword. Because depending on the keyword match type you're using, it can skew your data very, very quickly. So if you are doing any type of revenue tracking for lead gen and SaaS, which Latote is partly also a SaaS company, not just e-commerce company, it's important that you have the data clean, because when you get it into your Salesforce or whatever CRM you're using, you're not going to be able to act on it. And if you do, it's not going to be data that's accurate to act on, and then you're going to screw yourself when you actually go back into the platforms, ad platforms. So we had exhausted, going back to my point, we had exhausted the search volume of impressions that we can get, and we can see that through impression share. Google basically tells us, of all the traffic available for these keywords, how often are you showing up in Google for that? So our point of contact over at Latote was like, hey, how do we do display advertising? And display advertising are usually the banner ads that you see. And a lot of people say, display advertising is just for awareness. And I'm like, it's not. Like, anything can be direct response. Like, I can advertise on a trash can, and if you give me enough time and resources, I'm going to make money for you. Obviously depends on what we're marketing and all that kind of stuff too. But like, a lot of people speak in absolutes, which I'm a big, I hate it when they do that, because it's just not true. It also shows that they haven't even tried to be creative or try to solve a problem. So anyways, we were trying to do advertising on Display Network, and we could target fashion blogs and things like that. And just so you guys know too, Latote, for the people who don't know, is a company that's a competitor to Stitch Fix, which is basically allowing to send you shipments of clothes that it thinks you'll like based off your own profile and your own onboarding. So it kind of rotates through that. You can decide to keep some of them if you want, and things like that too, just so you have that frame of knowledge. So the display side, we were trying to target, females who were on fashion blogs and trying to get them to actually come through and create an account or buy an individual product. Did not work. We even tried to give a 50% off discount. Did not work. So what we did instead was we paired the call to action, what we want them to do, with the temperature, the conversion intent of the traffic, which is very cold for display traffic in general. If you're doing remarketing, where like the ad follows you around because you've already been on the site, that's a different type of traffic. That's higher intent. They already know about you. We're talking about like net new eyeballs to come through. What we did instead was we took an interim offer. We didn't ask them to onboard and create an account and buy, clothes. We asked them to sign up for their newsletter. And the landing page for the newsletter was all about the benefits and the features of the newsletter. It didn't even talk about Latote. And so we're thinking, okay, these people who are on these fashion blogs, they're going to click the ad. They're not going to have a high intent to like go through this onboarding quiz and swipe their credit card at the end. But to fill out an email form to get value in terms of the newsletter might make a lot of sense. So we tested that. It started working. Then on the thank you page, this is the most important part. On the thank you page of that newsletter landing page was the original call to action to onboard as a regular Latote, new customer. And because we put in a in-between spot that was more in line with what they're okay with, it's kind of, if I asked you, hey, can you send me $1 million? You're going to be like, no, I don't even know you, Johnathan. I'm like, well, if I do a ton of work before you and trust you, and like, you can basically name your son after me or whatever, then maybe one day you'll give me $1 million. But it's called the yes ladder. And it's a sales technique that we then have called the breadcrumb technique, which is like the Hansel and Gretel children's story and all that kind of stuff. To like, we're slowly, progressively asking things that are increasing in threat level to the visitor to then get to do the ultimate thing we want them to do.
Yeah. It's funny when you say that, I'm picturing just at the end, kids being locked into a cage. They're like going, here's where the ad
I coined that term very quickly, and I didn't think it all the way through. And I was like, I go with it. Yeah.
In this case, it's a happy place where they become a customer and all that stuff.
They get fattened up. They get all the candy, and like they can eat the house, and like it's all
exactly.
Yeah. And they survive. Like it's okay. Like they're not like the fate is not what you think it is.
Well, your Danish background, like my favorite course I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, was Scandinavian literature, and we studied the tales of Hans Christian Andersen, and we actually dissected those Maybe your Danish background, lends itself to that particular analogy. So yeah, I love that. Anything else on the contrarian approach from Latote that would be important to note?
Yeah. So we find these recipes, and then what we also do, going back to the differentiation perspective, is we coin these terms. So we make them famous and we just call them something. We have the breadcrumb technique, the iceberg effect, the mob effect, the gold pan technique, things like that. And
what's your favorite one that you've
the one that works almost very universally is definitely the breadcrumb technique, because it's the same thing. If we're doing email marketing for clients, and let's say that we're doing cold outbound email, most cold outbound emails like start talking about, who they are and like what they do. And like, nobody gives an F. Like, you're emailing me. Like, I don't care about who you guys are. Instead, you need to ask them for like a small thing. You need to ask them for a small step. Like, again, it's again, the breadcrumb, the yes ladder approach.
So is yes ladder breadcrumb equivalent? Is that like?
Yeah. So the yes ladder is basically a sales technique, and the breadcrumb technique is then we just stole that and then we turn it into a marketing related form and we call it the breadcrumb technique.
Got it.
So that's really helpful. And then the other thing, last thing I'll lead off with is the gold pan technique, the mob effect. Single product ad groups are very e-commerce focused, but they're all rooted in what we focus on very heavily, which is granularity. Like, we break things down to force them to prove that they make money for us or our clients. And so when we do that, we have more control versus giving the ad platform control. And that helps out a ton too.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the granularity and detail on it. And I think, people who are doing this stuff will totally appreciate that. And even if you're not doing this, one thing that he just said that you use, like just having something on your thank you page. I mean, just this stuff in general is super valuable on a high level. Most people may not have anything on their offer, a thank you page. They may even not even have a thank you page, Johnathan.
Well, so let me add some flavor to that. So if you're B2B or lead gen, when you are, having people sign up for a demo or a consultation or getting a price quote, whatever the CTA might be, doing the breadcrumb technique and actually having a multi-step form will work better. You never ask for name, email, and phone number on the first impression. Never do that. If you go to our website, you'll see that we live by those words. We have a 3-step process. It works tremendously well. All of our case studies, if you look at them, have the breadcrumb technique mentioned because it's a multi-step form. Mm-hmm. But here's the kicker. On the thank you page, if you don't tell, when the person who just converted, when they're going to be reached out to, by what number you're going to call them, what area code, because again, the day of robocallers, people are not even answering calls they don't know anymore. You don't telling them what the next step is, you're really hampering your speed towards the sale. And so those are just some quick wins that you can take care of.
Yeah. So many good questions I have, but one thing I want to take us to your page, if people go to KlientBoost.com, you see this really nice graphical page, and you have get your B2B coronavirus PPC CRO proposal now.
Yeah.
Okay. And get my free proposal. Tell me about the free proposal.
So the proposal is basically what we like. So comparing to other agencies, what we found is that people, have a consultation as a call to action. People have a quote as a call to action. The proposal is the only thing that we split tested over time that actually had some tangible value, because we also explain what's in the proposal once you click that button, actually, the pop-up.
Let me back up for 1 second. Yeah. Who's a good client for you? Like, who should actually be,
I'll tell you, like, very black and white. If you have at least 30 employees or spend at least $10,000 on marketing a month, you are a good client for us. Whether that's ad spend, whether that's content marketing, doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So don't flood his get my free proposal if you're not one of those things. But,
you can. We'll just disqualify you automatically. But we have the volume of case studies in all these different categories because our recipes work very well across the board, which we're really excited about.
Yeah. I think in one of the interviews, this was like dated back. You're like, I forgot if you said we get 500 leads a day or there was some.
No, we get a month.
Oh, a month? I was like, that's still good. But yeah, it's still amazing. Yeah. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. So yeah, so get my proposal, get my free proposal. I mean, then what happens next?
Basically, depending on the ad spend drop down you select, it gets routed to the appropriate, executive, the salesperson on our side. But the more important part happens when what it basically entails is that we give you a discovery call. We understand what your goals are, what your challenges are. Like, people might want to, lower their cost per acquisition, or they might want to get more volume depending on, and we also have to understand like, well, how many platforms are you on, things like that. So that's like an information gathering phase. Then we get access to your accounts or your Google Analytics. We then, with your goals, go in and find all the low-hanging fruits that are based off our own first-party data, our case studies, and then we present to you like a 30-minute run-through a Zoom call on like, here's the starting action plan. Like if we were to work together with you, this is exactly what we would do, and we're going to give you all of this so that you have it. And the reason why people hire us is because we're the fastest at executing it, and we've done it so many times. That's why they trust us. But if you want to, you're more than welcome to do it yourself. Like we give you that option.
So, Johnathan, I see that valuable in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you typically charge for, because you're kind of doing an analysis of their account for them?
Right. No, we don't
charge for that, or have you ever charged for it?
We never charged for it. There's only a few times where people have asked us to come on site and train their internal team, where it's just like a very, very much deeper dive, longer approach, way more holistic looking kind of thing. But no, we don't charge for it.
Okay. That's generous of you.
Yeah.
At what point I imagine in the beginning you were doing these calls?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. And so what point did you actually stop doing these calls?
So I was handling,
because that's a lot of calls. Like you have 500, even if you disqualify a certain number,
that's
like
what
it's still a lot of calls.
Today. That's not what it was early on, obviously. Okay. But what I did early on was I wish I would have gone faster and delegated quicker, because I just was and I still to this day am such a perfectionist. And I just, not that I micromanage or anything like that, but I'm just like, hey, if it's anything marketing related, I got to do it right. Like I got to do it. I can't give that to anybody else. So I was handling 16 clients by myself, probably like $60,000 of monthly recurring revenue in like the first early days of KlientBoost. And then I was doing the marketing and I was doing the sales. Now we have a team now we have a team of 4 salespeople. And then I come in on the more strategic ones, like the bigger ones, and say hi and lend my thoughts.
What do you look for in a salesperson? Do you look for someone who's like actually been trained as a salesperson, or more someone who's just, really down with PPC, like an expert at PPC? How do you?
So the latter. And the reason why is because it's so technical that you can't, like, again, we're marketing against other marketers to attract other marketers. Like their bullshit meters at an all-time high if it's just a random salesperson. And there's a lot out there that marketing agencies rely on, but we found the person who's already an account manager is the best person to turn into a salesperson. So
do you start them in as account manager and they graduate, or is it just a totally separate position?
No, it's the first one you said. Like we start as an account manager.
And then again, so they go through the proposal like, this sounds amazing, Johnathan. Like, let's do this. I want to get more leads. I want to get more conversions on leads. Then how does it work after that?
So we basically,
I imagine with this, it's a lot of rolling up your sleeves and doing a lot of work. Like, how does the onboarding?
So here's what's crazy too. We built our own software called Kite that actually scans the accounts for those recipes and finds the outliers for us.
Now, can people buy that, or does it only for internal purposes?
So through the acquisition and all the private equity firms that we've talked to, they're like, don't have it as a separate company, which I thought to begin with we should have. And so now we're moving it internally. So we still have other agencies that are using it and all that kind of stuff that are having.
But you're not going to let anyone else use it.
Correct.
Except if they're already using it.
Correct. And well, we're just going to like let them dry out themselves if they cancel. Or we're just going to tell them like, hey, in 60 days, we're going to stop offering the service. The reason why is not only is it great from a sales perspective, but it's also great from current clients where manually as humans, we cannot be overseeing the 200 clients that we have and still do the strategic work. So like we have to get pinged by our software Kite when things fall outside of the norm that we then have to go check manually on. So, but the interesting thing is that regardless of you being lead gen or e-commerce or SaaS, a lot of these recipes apply to you. And so when you actually look at our proposals that we send, the starting action plans are very similar. And everybody thinks they're getting a custom proposal, which they are, because these are the things that are going to help them improve end goals. But the truth is, because we've simplified it so much, we've been able to make it a lot quicker.
Yeah. I mean, also you disqualify certain people that don't fit into that, maybe that, you'd have to customize more if you took, certain types of businesses or too small or whatever. So
it's going to be more of a challenge once we actually come out and offer our other services, and like that prospect wants, all of the services. That's when it's going to take a lot longer.
So the Kite, it gives you a proprietary edge against any competitors, it seems. But you did decide at one point to release it, to have other people use it. And so the acquisition, people are like, yeah, keep this internal because they'll get the edge.
Right. Exactly.
So right now people cannot get it. Like,
they can today if they want to, but like the support of the outward facing benefits and features of it are some of them are being deprecated to focus more on what we needed to be internally instead. So they're not going to get the best experience, but you can today go sign up for it and use it right away.
Not that I want to flood you with a bunch of Kite users, but people, it's a scarcity. If you're like, I can't get it, I better get it now before they get acquired. Right. You never know. I'm curious of some of the lessons you learned. You had built another agency in Utah. So what are some of the lessons you learned from that you took over to KlientBoost?
So before going to Utah, I was there for about like a year and a half. Like my co-founder, the CEO there now, he was my client at the time, and I was a college senior, basically doing nothing but marketing work while in class. And he was seeing what I was doing on a small scale and say, hey, I had the more enterprise background and the connections. Would you consider, working together? And so my girlfriend at that time, now wife, and I drove to Utah, and we're like, this place sucks. no harmful,
I've
thoughts.
Never been there. So.
Great people, but compared to Orange County, Southern California, like, come on. And I left Denmark to come to California. So that I'm not about the seasons. I don't like even Chicago. You can't find me.
Oh, it's terrible in Chicago. It's
freezing
here.
Yeah, the dinner you talked about, it better be over here, not over there.
Well, unless it's like 2 months of the year in the summer, then you're fine here. Yeah.
Actually, I was at Lollapalooza a couple of years back.
Oh, nice. See, there you go.
Just
only a 2 month span. Only 2 months.
There for like a couple hours. Just wanted to experience it. And it was pretty funny. So what I learned was to honestly, like, it sounds super cliche, but it was like, okay, I can do this. Like, I'm talking to Red Hat. I'm talking to Citrix. I'm talking to cars.com. Like, and I'm impressing them.
It gave you the permission to do it on your own.
It
gave you permission just because you're like,
well, yeah. So what happened was the founder, and we've had our differences, and we've a lot better friends now than what we just were maybe a couple of years ago. I was over operations. I was doing all the account management work, making sure everybody had what they had. Then I started being in charge of the marketing. Then I started being in charge of sales. And at that point I was like, well, I know everything now. And I feel like I can do it better than my co-founder. Honestly, that was like and if he hears this, I hope he does. It's just the truth. I felt like I could do it better. And that gave me all the confidence I needed to be like, okay, I'm going to go back to where we're from. We also knew it was temporary in Utah. We weren't going to be there forever. Because again, we're not Mormon or anything like that. And again, love the people, they're awesome people, but we're just away from our family. Like we got married while we were out there in Temecula, California, while we lived there. And like, we were going to start our family and all that kind of stuff too. So it's just a matter of time.
What about lessons from, cause you guys have grown fast, as most people's standards from KlientBoost, any hiring, onboarding, sales, any of those things, that lessons that you're like, oh, I'll do this better, or I won't do it this way, or maybe some stuff you took from it?
The only thing that was different was the way that we were approaching marketing. And like, I wanted to build a brand and I want to be different. And I wasn't seeing eye to eye with the co-founder about that. And so that was the biggest lesson. But one thing that has helped us out so much right now, especially during these times when everybody's like, oh my God, am I going to get laid off? Am I going to get fired? And they're not sure, is like, operate from like radical transparency and actually do it. Like, everybody at the company knows our profits. Everybody at the company knows exactly what we're spending our money on. Like, I'm opening the book. And again, I'm not concerned about anybody copying it or running away with it, because it's 5 years of work. Like, you can start, sure. But if you're not that person yourself, If you're not having that personality, if you're not fun or slightly immature, like I am sometimes too, it's not going to come across as authentic, and you're not going to have results. So the transparency aspect is really helpful, because I'll give you an example of when coronavirus hit, and we did lay off some people, but we use it more as a preemptive measure to lay off people who were not performing well and people who were more newly hired that didn't have a full plate, because we did take a hit in clients that left or clients that paused. And people then came and asked, like, hey, can you give me a guarantee that I'm not going to be let go? I'm like to your face over Zoom, obviously. I was like, I can't promise you that. And here's exactly why. And I'm just laying out the steps. And so even if it's good news or bad news, operating off transparency is very helpful. Now, people that I've been in like entrepreneurs organizations like EO and all that kind of stuff. And I remember there was one founder who was like deathly afraid of her team even to know her revenue. And I'm like, what are the benefits of that? The pros far outweigh the cons when you're transparent. And as long as you can tell your people on your team that these are your rules for the game, that they have to play by your rules, then you can't really have anybody who gets upset, as long as, again, you're being honest and direct and transparent. And so that was the biggest thing where I was like, okay, even more so, because I wasn't the CEO then, now I am, how am I going to operate?
What do you think was that person's objection? That people, like, they saw how big the company would be, so they would have, they
would ask for more money. That's the thing that I think they would be concerned about. And
so how do you get, what did you say to that person? Or how do you say,
here's how you can make more money. The way that you make more money at KlientBoost is that you make the company more money first. And then the other part to it is like, what's the market rate for your position? Like, I can help you make more money, and we can put a growth track together to get you to where you want to make. But if you're at, let's say, $80,000 a year today, and you want to get to $50,000 or $500,000, I'm going to tell you flat out that's not going to happen. And if you really think that you're going to do that anywhere else as an employee, be my guest. But you're not. Instead, I'm going to give you the honest answer and the honest feedback and show you, here are the Glassdoor average salaries. Pick anywhere in the country you want. If it's New York, you probably won't even get close to that number anyways. So again, the transparency and the honesty and the truth has always been very, very helpful.
This is interesting, Jonathan. Can you talk to me about a conversation? Because, you want your staff to win. You have some amazing staff. I looked up, one of them has got like a YouTube channel of like 70,000 people, I think, on it. I watched one of his videos. Shout out to him. He's funny. But when you had that conversation, you sat down because you really want to help them grow within your company, because that benefits the company, benefits them. Can you talk to me? And you don't have to mention names, but someone's like, listen, here's where I'm at. Here's where I want to go. And like, you helped walk through, here's the path. Sure. And they followed it.
Yeah. The first thing is like, do as you say you're going to do is really important. Like consistency with what you were saying too. And so in 2018 and 19, those 2 years in a row, the company actually made less profit year over year compared to 2017, which is kind of crazy. Why is that? And it's because we invested in our software. It's because we invested in a middle management layer and we gave raises and all that kind of stuff. And so when I show people that I chose to take less money home, even though I technically still make more than them, but I chose to take less money more because I'm investing in the business and I'm giving raises to these other people who are in those positions, it kind of puts away their weapons. Like their ammo is gone, right? There's not really anything they can point and say, hey, you're just a greedy CEO and you just want to make more money. And I tell them the same. I want to make more money like you want to make more money too. So the way that we look about it is, if you're an account manager, for example, you average a certain monthly recurring revenue that you're handling. That is like whatever the clients that you're handling are paying us. You can either raise the revenue by hitting the goals of those clients, which is like, a good incentive in and of itself. So you don't have to add more clients to your list, or you add, it's my dog, sorry, or you add more clients. Those are the only two options. Now, if you want to be going above that and becoming a manager or a director beyond that, here are the things that you have to hit. And that's also spelled out black and white. And so, like, we were growing at the rate where like, we couldn't say like, oh, here are the next 10 steps for your career, because we hadn't made those positions yet. Like we're still working on them.
Yeah. Someone can grow within their position, or they can grow into a different position, is what you're saying. And then do you have a specific, obviously I remember interviewing someone, and they said that, money is the least motivating. Appreciation, like all those things are more motivating to someone, but people still want to, obviously make more money. There's certain bonus structures that you've seen, or ways to appreciate people, whether it's money or not money, that you found.
I think the lead. So we actually do what's called a DISC assessment of all our people that we hire. So we have like this, I would call like a scientific black and white motivational benchmark that we know. And the best performing people are the ones at KlientBoost with a high dominance. The people who have a high dominance are usually motivated by money. So that's why I started there. But on top of that, because we built, some thought leadership, because we have a brand, people are really happy and excited when they can publish a blog post on the KlientBoost blog. Or, if I put them in, if any other podcast wants to interview them because I don't have time or whatever, like that is a big plus. So they're like using KlientBoost, and I tell them this, use this as a stepping stone. And right now, I also told them that I'm doing a test on LinkedIn with my content that I'm publishing there to see if I can get like a lot of engagement. And I'm getting like over 100 reactions per post and a lot of comments and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just getting started. And I told them like, hey, if this works, I want to roll this out for you guys so that we can be a force together. But you should also care about your own brand, but don't. And this is where the additional value comes, where like they're excited about content because they see it working for us. They see the fact that I get asked to be on shows like yours and things like that too. That's like something that just blows their mind, which they're really excited about. So I want to furnish that for them and get them those opportunities, which they're really pumped about. But also one thing I keep telling them is like, don't confuse your own brand with what is really the brand behind it. Because I never put my own brand before KlientBoost because it's all hollow. Like I can't do the service for you myself. Like who cares? Eventually, like it might get bigger and bigger for my personal brand, but I care more about, and the people that I respect the most are the people who have built something, right? The ones that they can't fake anything. So I look at people like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Definitely. Yeah.
But a lot of people can give him flack, but what you can't give him flack about is he has over 1,000 employees.
He's an operator. Yeah.
How the F do you do that at that speed? Like that is impressive. So I literally saw him on stage in San Diego years ago with my wife. And we were like appalled by him because he was just like raw and raw. And then after that, when he was done talking, we were like, holy shit, this guy's amazing. He has a podcast. I literally went through episode 1 and it was like 200 episodes, so far at that point that I like listened to every single one of them. This is crazy. Bought his book, went to his Hudson Yards office, was in a conference with him as well too. Get this, a year ago, Bloomberg tells me, our point of contact, that we were up against VaynerMedia in the actual The reason why we won was because we can go super deep on the technical side because we can explain and answer the reasons why. And I was like, F yeah. So anyways, the whole thing of like what I give them additionally in beyond money is that they know that they're part of a brand vehicle that can actually exponentially make themselves more famous, and open up doors too, for sure.
Yeah. Stick on that topic for a second, Johnathan. Who are other colleagues or mentors or people that you respect in the industry that you follow, like a Gary Vee? It could be people you know or people you don't know.
I'm trying to think. Gary Vee is the one that has like tangible value, tactical value that you can like listen to, watch, read, take right away, right? And the stuff works too. So those are the people. So I tend to say, but it's not always the case because especially during the pandemic, I consume a lot more content than I used to, but I focus very heavily on creating more than I consume. And so I don't give my attention to a lot of people or companies that I don't find like really impressive. And he's definitely one that comes to the top of mind. Pep Laha from Conversion Excel, which is a conversion
I've interviewed him. Yeah.
Yeah. That guy's a badass. He's so funny. I'm a teacher for their Conversion Excel Institute. And again, these guys work with like booking.com, like big brands. Right. And I'm a teacher in his own course. And I say, and one of my guys on my team was like, hey, do you think we can get access to this Conversion Excel? And I was like, of course we can buy it, but like, let me ask Pep if I can just get it for free. So I email him. He's like, yeah, you can pay for it. I'm like, wow. the guy doesn't BS. The guy is straight to the point. And like this is what really is cool about Pep that I don't think a lot of people understand. His writers go on to do cool shit. So like he's known for his blog. So Chanel Mullen got hired at Shopify. Alex Burkett got hired at HubSpot. Like it's like PayPal mob, like doing cool stuff after like the Elon Musk kind of people. So that's another person I have tremendous respect for.
When you were talking about the acquisition, who do you go to get advice from?
It's really interesting, and it might sound super naive, but this is where people have given me advice on like, hey, you should do better, like holding some of the information back so you can negotiate a little bit more. And I'm like, no, it doesn't really make sense for me to do that because they're going to learn it anyways at some point. And so, I'd rather get to the answer and the end result quicker by just giving them everything now. And so I don't go to anybody really. I had a few conversations. We had like a business mentor who trains more of our VPs and directors. He was the one who recommended me that I actually leave Entrepreneurs Organization because he thought it would bring me down. So I was like, okay, like I won't hang out with, the other founders or things like that. So there's not really anything I look to in regards to the acquisition that I could recommend.
So I have two last business questions. And first of all, thank you, John. This has been amazing. Thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge. And
thank you. People
should check out KlientBoost.com with a K, KLIENT boost.com, and check out everything that you guys do. And before I ask the business questions, I always ask, since it's Inspired Insider, what's been a low moment that you had to push through, what's been a challenging time, and then what's been a high, proud moment. But before those two, I want to hear from your basketball career. What was like your favorite game of all time, or something that you think back on as, because I just remember you telling the story of like you would just dribble in your room for like hours. I don't know, how tall are you?
I'm 6'1". So
you're 6'1". So like you played professional basketball overseas. And so you must be able to dunk or do something crazy at 6'1".
I can shoot really well.
Shoot really well. Okay.
Yeah. I could dunk once.
So maybe your game, like when you go to bed, your head hits a pillow, and that's like the game you think of that.
So the coolest experience was, so I had actually gotten in a fight with my dad. I was in high school over here in the US, and he sent me back home to my mom in Denmark. And everywhere in the US, you can go anywhere to play a pickup basketball game pretty easily. In Denmark, it's soccer first, then it's handball, and then it's like probably not even basketball at that time, but it's only like very seasonal. So you can only do it during winter or something like that. So I had my first job was being a receptionist in a fitness center, which I thought was like, that's going to be a very good use of me being productive, right? I can work out and I can make some money, which I actually didn't make any money. I only got a free membership from doing that. So they had like an aerobics studio, and there was, again, no basketball hoop, but they had this Reebok medicine ball that was rubbery and bouncy, where normal medicine balls are just like, you drop them and it's a loud thump, and like, that's it. And so I just was dribbling like crazy, and my forearm muscles were getting pretty ripped. And so I was getting really good at dribbling that summer. So I came back to Denmark in February that summer. The Danish championship team was holding a basketball camp. I signed up, joined. I forgot a blow-up mattress. I didn't sleep on anything but my clothes scattered on like the cold cement floor. And so for a good week, I just slept on that only, like my clothes, which wasn't a lot, and then go out to play like what seemed like 6 hours a day, and then go back to sleep and all that kind of stuff. I won MVP of the camp. I got asked to join the team. They gave me like a place to stay in the city and all that kind of stuff, and comped me for travel. I physically never got paid money. I got comped, which would still be NCAA rule breaking. So that's why I call myself professional, and it was also the professional league. But to get to your question, because they had won the Danish championship, they got invited to EuroLeague. And in the preseason, you go to like basically drive down to teams again in Germany or Croatia and things like that. And like kids in Croatia, 18 years old, average height 6'7". It's just like farm teams down there. It's wild.
Tony Kukoc from the Bulls, yeah.
My favorite thing was talking to these other American players who were on these teams that we're playing against that were like bench players for USC or like massively, successful college programs. And I was like, this is wild. And again, I wasn't a starter or anything like that. I came off the bench, but I got decent playing time. that was just the experience to say that you've done that was incredible. And I actually came to the US, get this, wanting to be a marine biologist and play basketball.
Wow.
And the basketball thing didn't work, and I hated chemistry. So I stopped marine biology and I found marketing.
Were you just a lights out shooter? How did you win the MVP?
I guess the competition wasn't that great when I look back at it, but I'm a decently good shooter. I can't obviously, be too cocky, but I'm pretty good.
All right. Well, Chicago dinner and then horse is like the agenda.
Let's do it.
You could probably beat me. We'll see. So low moment, challenging time, and proud moment. What were?
So people ask me what my motivation is today, and I think I go to therapy pretty regularly. It's such a help. It's amazing. With my wife
is a psychologist, by the way. Yeah. So
is she? Okay, awesome. And she'll give me a high five. Normalizing therapy, I think, is going to happen very, very soon. It's amazing. But what we basically found out was, so my dad sent me home. My mom kicked me out. Again, it sounds really bad. And I wasn't growing up in the hood or the ghetto or anything like that. It's all relative, right? To like your own circumstances. Then I came back over to the US, and I wasn't on terms with my dad yet, but I was with my grandma, his own mom, and she kicked me out. And these are reasons that are like, wow, it wasn't like I was like a problem kid.
You seem like such a nice guy. Why is everyone kicking
so let me give you the reasons. So my dad, I got a girlfriend in high school. I started losing focus on basketball. I started losing focus on school, and like my grades were dropping and all that kind of stuff. And we got in a fight, and I was like, Dad, why don't you just send me home? And he was like, cool. He printed out a British Airways itinerary that day, got me to the airport, and like sent me off. My mom had, because I lived so many years in the US, had basically, continued her own life, got a boyfriend at the time, moved in together. They moved to another part of Denmark, which is called Jutland, which is like the South, in the US equivalent. And I just didn't get along with the boyfriend. It was more him being threatened by me. I was actually pretty chill, but I was 18 at the time. And my mom was like, can you get, your own place? And I was like, sure. I did. I got stress-induced asthma, like literally couldn't reach an apex of my breath, like the peak of it. And that's like the most frustrating. Imagine taking a deep breath and not being able to like. I've
experienced it like a couple. It's so frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened. Had to get my first job and all that kind of stuff too, which sounds easy, but it's not easy when both your parents are not there to really support you. And then my grandma kicked me out because I didn't change the light bulb in my own bathroom fast enough. And I had a tiny little dent in the bumper that I didn't get fixed fast enough either. She just decided to send me out. So my point is that I had people who had control in my life to pull the rug out from underneath me. That since then, so that's my down part. My highlight is that since then I've been so focused on making my rug as heavy as possible financially that I have this drive that I have today, because I had this fear in the back of my mind that somebody can just yank it out. So I took my bad things and turned them into good things, which I'm really thankful for.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. There's a lot of times I find that hard charging, really motivated people, there's some pain that's driving them.
Or fear that they don't want to realize.
Fear and pain. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, thank you again, Johnathan. People check out KlientBoost.com and, everything that you're doing. I really appreciate your time and knowledge.
Thank you, my man. It was so fun being on here.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like $100 grand.